final set of this SPL week. And listen, guys, I heard you. The ad yesterday, too long. Mifflin, won some contests. But I think I'm still a fantastic chair salesman. Aggro, do you agree?
This is the chair ad, Dave? I'm like never here for your chair ads, and this is what you're going to bring. This is mediocre at best.
What the heck did you just say about me, you little desk chair? I'll have you know I graduated at the top of my class at the Chair Sales Academy, and I've been involved in numerous secret ads on SMITE game, and I have over 300 confirmed sales. I'm trained in meme warfare, and I'm in the top salesman on the entire hi-rez caster team. You are nothing to me but just another buyer. I'll wipe your wallet out with the precision, the likes of which has never been seen before on this earth. Mark my words. Now, for you at home who didn't receive that, I don't know if I've told you the story of Darth Maxonomic the Wise. Let me tell you now. You can go online to needforseat.com, order one of these fine chairs that I'm sitting in, and then I have over 300 confirmed sales. Not confirmed at all, by the way. But if you buy now, you get a nice in-game ward as well, so you can see where you're going in style, and you can show your teammates where you're walking as well. That's needforseat.com, one of these comfy SMITE Maxonomic chairs. And you can be sitting in style like Aggro and I. Aggro, back to, level Earth here. We've calmed down. You triggered me a little bit there.
I'm supposed to just roll right through like I wasn't just steamrolled on that ad? Okay, sure, man. Whatever.
Yes.
Literally, whatever you say, Dave. And I'm
in, look, the steering wheel's in my hands, and we're shifting into gear to talk about PK versus Obey here. And I want to start things off talking about this Obey squad. Obviously got their first win earlier on, a big win here for this team, get some momentum going for themselves, and maybe no better leverage point to talk about than with Sino. He's the guy who gets brought in and gets some momentum going. You can see that first win up there, 2-1 over E United. So I think it's got to be big. It's got to be now a big momentum shift for Obey, jumping up from that 8th spot to now having a win under their belt, keep that momentum moving forward.
And this is a great opportunity to do so because PK is coming in kind of ice cold. Their only win this phase has been against E United, who is winless so far. So I think that Obey really have a chance to try and keep that momentum going. I loved seeing the style that Obey played up against E United, particularly this Erlong Shen for Sino. I thought that he really dictated a ton of fights in this game and was really, really impressive on this pick. Sino is just the type of player that wants to be that leader, that wants the team to follow his calls, and Erlong's a perfect god to try and do that with, because you have so much damage by yourself, but you also have so much setup and so much CC. I think that this style of jungler is going to be very, very successful for Sino moving forward.
We have seen some Erlong Shens just rip through teams, haven't we, here as of late? So I kind of like that vibe. Sino, jokingly, maybe not, sort of, tweeted out previously, no more warriors in the jungle. I think a specific style still works. And it's definitely centric around this. But also the rest of the team, it's been this continual setup as weeks have gone on to sort of form some cohesion and start to convert some good early games into some good mid games and eventually into a win. So has to feel good for these guys to get the win. Now the question is to keep that momentum going. You're going up against PK, though, Aggro, another team that struggled. We kind of have these two halves of the league at the moment. So this is a big one, I think, for PK as well to start to get the ball rolling on their face.
This, like I said before the break, I don't think this is a must-win for PK because mathematically it can't be. We're still in August, and this phase goes for a long time. But for team morale, I do think this one is pretty important for this squad because, like I said, they've really struggled. They won against E United the first week of August, so a good 2 weeks ago, basically at this point. Ever since then, they've really, really struggled to find their footing, and I think a lot of those struggles are Fred, him and Paul in the 2v2 in mid have lost a couple of those engagements. I think Fred has really, really struggled in phase number 2 to find that same presence that he had in phase number 1. So that's where I'd be looking to start if I'm PK, is what can we give Fred to get him on a roll, because he's been doing anything but so far here in phase 2.
All right, got to keep that pressure pushed against a lot of where Obey are leveraging their pressure to get the ball rolling there on their side. So all this talk about Fred, how he's feeling, how he needs to perform in this set, I think it's all well and good, but we were able to sit down with him himself and hear some of his thoughts on going against Obey.
That's right. We're here with Cuo Fred from the Knights, and you guys have been a pleasure to watch lately. One of the things that you've been trying, though, is kind of switching away from the meta, picking up these off-meta picks. So I'm just kind of wondering, what's the thought process for you and your team right now in Phase 2?
So for us, I think we know it's a long year and it's a lot of matches we've been have to play and we've been playing. So for us, we're just looking at the big picture and we're trying to get comfortable with the gods and get comfortable with the meta and like take our own take on it. There's obviously still some weak spots we have in our play, and we're just looking to improve it coming in week to week. So that's our stance right now.
Well, it's the fun way to try and switch things up. Also, it makes the games a little bit more interesting when we have no idea what's about to get pulled out. But you're going up against a team, and maybe this is actually going to help you with some of that stuff. You're going up against Obey, right? They just got their first win, so that's going to be something that is pretty big. And I just want to know, does that make a difference to you and your team's prep coming into the set, knowing that they're maybe trying to turn onto a hot streak?
I'm not gonna lie, like them having the first win and they look good doing it. I mean, definitely, you can't deny it. Like sometimes, same with United. Sometimes you just look really good, and you have to put some respect on that. Coming into Obey with the win against United 2 days ago, 2 days ago. We just have to play our game and we have to take it super serious. So of course, them winning is something we have to take into consideration and just bring our A game.
You'll be going up directly against Sino and a lot of the moments in the jungle there. So how do you plan to maybe try and control him, knowing that he, likes these warrior-style plays? What's the goal to control Sino's jungle?
I think we as a team, we just want to make sure we know where Sino is and we have like a proper communication on what he's doing. I think us as a team is a better team than them. So I think we just want to be able to come out of the early game and maybe even come out ahead in the early game, because I think we know when we do what we do best, I think we are a really unstoppable force to be reckoned with. So I think we just want to get down with it and have control in the game.
Awesome, man. It sounds like you guys have a game plan. You know what your Phase 2 is going to look like, and you know what this set is going to look like for you. So thanks for your time and good luck in your games.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Still confident. I think a lot of what Fred says there sort of echoes, I think, your mentality, aggro, where not necessarily have to win, but kind of need to win, maybe mentally here for the Knights guys. There might be some overlap as well in this pick ban phase, in the jungle role. I think that's where a lot of these two teams maybe look to build out their pressure. So I wonder what your thoughts are maybe on where we might see some of that overlap.
Yeah, I think that the God pools are for Fred and for Sino are pretty different. That's kind of true for most junglers versus Sino because he likes his different stuff. But
right.
For Fred, I think we've seen him have the most success on gods like Pele. The Nemesis has not worked for Fred at all in recent weeks, but I don't know if that's going to mean that they completely stray away from it. I think it's pretty interesting that PK's first ban is Horus because of the performance that Inbound had on it earlier on this week up against E United. It was one of the gods that he looked the most comfortable on. And then PK go right back to another god that Obey found comfort with in that Erlong Shen. I kind of like the targeted ban phase so far.
Yes, I agree. I think this is a very clear, all right, we know what worked for you that time. Let's see if we can switch some stuff up and find similar success. On the opposite side, standard as they come. Persephone taken away, Umoja in one of the strongest spots right now. You look at Neil and what his potential brings with the Umoja, not surprising at all. Nemesis as well, taken away from Sino. So some strong statements there, I think, from the Knights to round out their top three.
So now there's a lot on the table. I mean, Olara and Freya are both open right now. I think if I'm Obey, I'm not banning either one, unless I really feel like one is head and shoulders above the other. Feels like they might feel that way because of that Olara ban, because now PK get their own Hecate user without any sort of top-tier Hecate user in order to contest them in that way. Could also go Cthulhu, is what I was about to say, and that's the direction that PK will choose to go. So because the way that PK choose to ban, a lot of target bans, they don't take the quote-unquote top of the tier list out right away. So now Obey has an option to go like Freya Ama is probably where I would go if I were in their shoes, but Obey is known to pick some strange things and to feel a little bit differently about how the meta's going, so wouldn't be surprised to see them do that.
Cupid, very strong. First pick strong. We'll have to see what Obey follow up with here, because I agree. I mean, at least at this point, we know the Knights likely will not need that Amaterasu, so you might have a little extra cushion before that second wave of bans. You don't necessarily have to pick it here if you don't feel like you need to. It's going to be a Hercules instead. Interesting priority, I think, there, aggro from Obey. I mean, Cupid Hercules, very strong in their own right, but they've left some strength on the table, absolutely.
Freya still up here for the Pittsburgh Knights if they so choose. I think the Hercules pick is one that Obey feels pressured into taking because Neil can play that at such a high level that maybe they don't want to give that over to him. Inbound, again, it fits the play style that I think Obey wants for inbound, but mechanically, earlier on this week, that pick was not up to par. We'll see if a couple more days of practice under his belt, or maybe it was just a bad day at the office, is enough to make that pick worthwhile here for Obey.
Interesting. We see another wave here where Freya is passed over. Ram Xingchen, certainly a strong combo there. We've seen the merits of Ram as this phase has gone on. But when you compare it to the potential maybe of what we've seen out of the Freya, nothing if not surprised. And then a sixth time Freya is passed over. It's going to be the Wukong locked in for Obey. Maybe see Freya fall in the ban columns here for either of these teams.
I don't think so at this point. I mean, I don't see that Cupid going to anyone but Wowie. I don't think Freya's playable in mid. And Rom's not going to Paul. So I think that we're going to see Freya go completely untouched in these picks and bans. Same can be said for Ama. I don't think we're going to see Ama either in this ban phase, because why would you? I mean, Wukong, I guess, could be for Sino, though I'm sure PK watched the set against C United. Their bans tell me they did. They know that they like prioritizing that Wukong for Ducky early on in the draft, and they have not shown that flex over to Sino in the jungle. So I think you're banning the gods that Wolfie has played really effectively recently. Soul, Ra, the Poseidon. I mean, those are the types of picks that I'd expect PK to be trying to take away here from Obey.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the Ra. I think that's something that's kind of a sneaky, not necessarily pocket pick, but something that maybe gets glossed over in the ban phase that, shows that Wolfie has improved, expanding some of that god pool here for himself. Thor Soul taken away. Hey! There he is. Ra locked in now for Wolfie out of the mid lane. Obey still returning to some comfort, and I think they're happier off for it.
This is what they played on Friday, and it got them their first win in the phase. So, you can't be too upset with it if you're an Obey fan. But I do think that there is something to be said for playing the exact same things that you played earlier on in the week against your second opponent of the week, because PK should be very, very well versed in how Obey wants to actually execute on these picks. Hebo could be for Paul in the mid lane, could be for Fred. Hebo has been a Paul pick his whole career, and with the Raven locked in, it will confirm that will be for Paul there in the mid lane. I like this pick a lot up against Ra. Ra's not a god that's going to put significant pressure on you, at least kill-wise, as Hebo. You will get out-pushed pretty heavily, but that's kind of true for Hebo versus a lot of gods. I think that this is a fine pick here for Paul.
And the Wheelix to round out the draft here for Obey. Small data pool on how she's performed. 10% pick ban, hasn't won just yet here in Phase 2 of the SPL. What do you think about the way Obey rounds out their draft?
Man, I wish I would have called it, because I had a sinking feeling in my stomach that was going to be a Willix there for Sino. It's really dependent on Obey getting ahead. I think that this team composition for Obey snowballs super well. Like, if they get off to a 3K lead at 12 minutes, they are going to be nearly unstoppable because of the damage and the CC that they have on this team and how well they do objectives. But if they get behind, I just don't see a whole lot of win conditions. I mean, Ra is not a character that does well from behind. No one really does, but I'm talking in comparison to other characters. Like a Willix is horrible from behind because everyone's running at you, and that means you can never knock them up with your 3. I think PK has a lot of very, very strong tools, but it requires them to get a little bit later into the game. It really depends on how well Bobby's going to do on this Hercules for me. He has got to be a driving presence in the early game.
Well, it just makes sense if one more set is rife with snowballs. We'll have to see if PK and Obey can do the same as set number 1. Both these teams searching for win number 2. Game 1, let's dive in.
Thanks, Dolson and Aggro. Finch and Gore on the cast. It'll be Doug bringing you the views as we move into the Knights up against Obey. Make sure you let us know who you think can win this one in the polls in the chat. And Gore, we could talk a little bit about this draft, as it looks like we are going to be taking a minute to come out of the game, make sure the players are ready to go, then we'll hop back in. But you heard what they were talking about on the desk, that Obey were maybe trying to go back to a bit of what worked for them in their big win. Really, the Raw is the only thing that makes it over from that here again, whereas on the other side with the Knights, they got a ton of picks that they would normally want to value. How do you like Obey's chances here, just based on the picks you've been able to see?
I think if they can take control of the early game, and I'm not even going to compare them to when they won against United, I think if they can do in the early game here what they did against SSG, then I think their draft can get ahead. But now I can draw some parallels to Friday. The first game, which we saw Inbound piloting this Hercules, it was just not good, Finch. There's no way to really skirt around it. There were a lot of missed knockups, a lot of missed pushes, a lot of missed control from this Hercules, and then some similar mistakes that we've seen out of Inbound where, positioning comes into question. I think the Hercules, or the Horus, I should say, really, in games 2 and 3, helped turn things around, really opened up the door for Obey, and I love that the Knights banned that. If this Hercules is, different from what we see on Friday, which, again, sometimes you just have bad games. I'm not going to hold it against Inbound here.
Certainly.
But if it's the same one we see, then there's a good reason that it's going to be let through for Obey.
Here's some of what we've been seeing as part of a new start, which is going right for this Alpha Harpy at the beginning of the game. A lot of the times we see that in lanes where you feel like you're going to lose pressure no matter what, and with Cupid maybe a little bit struggling in the early clear, perhaps that was the call here from Inbound and Wowie to go to Alpha, maybe give up the lane pressure to Rom's level 1, which is just disgustingly good at clearing, and then back up. But sort of as you were saying about Inbound's performance in the Hercules, I think that some variance on Hercules should be to be expected unless literally you're PBM or Aurora, because it is hard to execute at a high level with this god consistently. It really is. So again, I'm with you in not holding that against Inbound, as it looks like he's a man on a mission heading towards the enemy red. Got Sino coming down as well, but perhaps electing to give it up. Instead, they're heading back towards mid. Sino blinking in, has managed to find Cuo. Knockup is going to land. That should pull Cuo back, but not enough for Obey to be able to find that first blood. I love how active they are, though.
Yeah, I like to see things like that, right? You're getting aggressive. Yeah, you recognize very early on we can't get away with the red buff, but let's just make them uncomfortable. And I love that the damage ends on Cuo more than anybody else. Paul, I think he's already going to get outpushed. You don't really have to pressure him out for Wolfie to be successful, but Cuo, I think his level 3 is going to be a lot stronger than what we see out of Sino. I think the gank potential for Awelish is always going to be there, but starting at level 3, Ravin starts to make an impact on the game. A little bit later, I think we'll see the Awelish really hit the same stride, but because he's got that potency early on, slow him down, knock him out for a little bit, and keep him under control. And already, I think we're feeling, at least in my eyes, a little more confidence from Bobby. Sometimes it can cause some trouble there for Inbound, right? If you get too overconfident, maybe you go for that red buff, you lose your life. But I think he just showcased a really good amount of control there, and that's what I want to see from that duel lane.
Ducky in trouble. The Meyer has rooted him. The slow there as well, and Scary to find first blood for the Pittsburgh Knights over in the solo lane, which become an area where there has been a bit more action lately. And I like this. If you're going to lock in Ravin of all picks, you have got to be active early.
And the fact that they're going immediately for Ducky, right? When you go back, you look at Friday's games, there were 2 people that did consistently well through all 3. Ducky was one of them, and he was the one that I think maybe performed the best in at least game 1, and then Wowie is the other one you have to be worried about. It's kind of hard to shut down a Cupid early on. He's pretty safe, and especially once his Fields of Love come online, I don't know that we're going to see Cuo pressure over here. But Ducky, he's a sitting duck right now. Sorry for the pun that comes through. It's just so easy to take him down, so I think it makes it a lot easier to find that pressure over there and let Neil and Zap do their own thing.
It is worth noting, though, that start for Inbound put him behind. You could tell with the XP per minute charts that it was taking them a long time to make it up to level 2 because they were considering the red buff invade, didn't go for it. They went to mid for a pick, didn't get it, and he kind of ended up splitting his own red 3 ways. So this start has put Inbound behind a little bit, but I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing Wowie a little bit ahead of Zap. We can see it in the experience needed. He is a bit ahead, now level 5 as opposed to level 4 for Zap, as looks like Obey do go for the red buff invade. So you're starting to see that Inbound's trading some farm to give Wowie an edge.
And you know what? I'm fine with that. Guess what? He's level 3. For me, that's what Hercules needs right now. He's got his knock-up, he's got his push, he's got his heal. Or, best case scenario, maybe he has 2 points in his push or his knock-up. Probably the push if you're going to level up 1 twice, and that's a little bit of extra damage. But honestly, once you have all of your abilities, you're kind of set. Yeah, hitting level 5, getting your boulder is going to help, but now they've got Sino on the way, and they just forced Zap's speeds. They might be able to find something here.
Should be able to use the ultimate to get out of the fields of love, but this could easily be a double. Neilma able to just barely escape to the right, so they turn their eyes towards Zapman instead. But Zapman has the roll. Somehow Obey Alliance in that situation get nothing, and the Pittsburgh Knights are able to get away.
I mean, you do still get to walk away with Zap not having beads, and he used his ult, so all of his safety is down. But with Cuo over here, now that Sino's out of there, it actually might just get turned on its head.
Cuo has already used the root, I believe, a bit off the mark. He's got the slow working on to inbound, uses the driving strike to get Neil under the tower, but Cuo Fred with the Mystic Rush closes the gap and can't get the last bit of damage in. Cuo narrowly makes it out with his life. Now that's 2 ganks over to the long lane that could have easily returned kills, and neither team was quite able to get it. It's such thin margins in this early game, and Gore, now they're fighting over blue.
Yeah, I'm trying to do damage control and figure out who's coming out ahead. I guess the Knights, because they got the purple invade there after. Cuo gets a little bit of a heal, but he's still forced to back. And it is just small, but slowly, a lead that they're able to accrue here. I mean, that's remarkable from both teams, I think, engage and disengage-wise. It seemed like surefire kills for Obey, but I think the Knights just played clean in order to pull that apart, and maybe the separation, chasing down Neil versus Zap, causes a little bit of trouble for him. And then almost similarly, if Cuo had hit that root either on the inbound or had saved that cooldown, we'd be seeing a kill there. So little things that are keeping people alive. It's still only that 1 first blood kill that's come through.
Well, another red buff invade. Obey got the last one, but it looks like they're going to fall back. That means Cuo should be able to secure it, and Pittsburgh Knights able to defend their jungle. It's tough. Those are difficult ganks. I don't want to make it sound like those are huge misplays from either one of the teams.
Oh, no, not at all.
Because those are thin margins. I'm with you there, Gore. But it did feel like with those heavy commits that at least, a kill could have come from it. And I wonder if maybe Obey split their focus a little bit on Neil, and they couldn't decide if they wanted to wait for Zap or try to kill Neil, and then they come back over to Zap. It is a little difficult to tell when it's happening so quick for these guys, but shout-outs to both of them for somehow finding ways to make it out of there alive.
Not only making it out of there alive, but to have it all happen around the same time is immense. I mean, Cuo, that must have been some insane comms they had, knowing that Sino was going to make his way over there, so they needed the help and the retaliation. And inbound, that one's off the mark, but he has been very good with these plucks so far in this game, Finch, that it's causing trouble. Like on Friday, again, in the first United game, you could almost count for it not connecting, and a lot of the time I think that enabled United to get aggressive. Here, though, Zap has to play careful.
He's already been hit by the Heart Bomb, but Cuo Fred is here. Fields of Love comes out, but the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel stops inbound from following up. The snipes from Zapman get Pittsburgh Knights their second kill. Sino has already used the ult for the stim, and that means Zapman falls. It's 1 for 1. Hunter has fallen for support on the opposite side. Plus, Sino gets the kill credit. I mean, I don't know. That might lean a little bit towards Obey.
I mean, I don't know if you can smell it, but there's some singed hair there on Cuo Fred as well. Wolfie came over. The ult didn't get to ultimately do anything there, but just on the edge of maybe damaging Cuo. Wouldn't have found a kill. I don't think it would have made a huge difference. Maybe the difference of continued aggression from Obey and the fallback that we saw. But just knowing that he's there, knowing the presence is available from this Ra. One thing he's going to struggle with, in my eyes, would be getting away from Cuo. He has a root, he has a jump to chase him down. Cuo is able to lock down Wolfie pretty easily. But one thing that Ra is great at, use your passive, get that move speed, and rotate to these other lanes. Use that long-range ult, because he was sitting at the Alpha Harpy when he fired that. Like, it's such a great ability. And I think what they have in terms of strength here in Obey translates not only in terms of damage, but into late-game healing. There's a lot of good in this draft.
Look at this for Paul. He elected to not pick up the Mage's Blessing, and I imagine that has enabled him to go with this first item, Rod of Tahuti, right behind the boots, as opposed to Wolfie, who's got the Divine Ruin over there. And, I mean, this is a ton of power in 160, and I can't imagine the passive's ever bad. You like this early Rod rush here, Corey?
So this is like having a friend that's wearing like a full custom suit, has a Rolex, goes home into maybe kind of run-down apartment and is eating ramen noodles out of a cup, right? It feels like he just spent a lot of money on something that I don't know if he had the coffers to afford. Obviously, he's able to get it, but what he's falling back on and how long it's going to take to get another item online is going to be maybe where my question goes. But like you said, it's such a huge power spike, right? A lot of the times you see Bancrofts early for a Hebo. Lifesteal plays really well into him. Of course, the 100 power is also incredibly solid. But now you're getting not quite double that from one item, but you're going to hit this Raw twice as hard as he's going to be able to hit you. It, I think, enables some boxing power here for Paul. And if there's anything I'm never going to do, it's second guess Paul's Hebo, right? I mean, it is perfectly fine. Whatever he wants to do, he has a pass for at this point, because I think this mage is going to look good. And realistically, it just makes it so that he doesn't have to wait as long to get that power online.
Yeah, it kind of makes Crushing Wave functionally and execute as Sino is the one in trouble of dying. He is locked inside with this Cthulhu, uses Suku to dash back, and the blink, but Mystic Rush from Cuo Fred lets him go over the top. But now, has Cuo Fred overcommitted? He's heading back towards Scary D, heading back towards his team. He knows he needs the peel, but Wolfie won't let him escape. It's 1-for-1, jungle for jungle, and now Scary D, without the descent into madness, has to keep on running. Obey Alliant are angry at the loss of their friend, but no way to keep up the chase. That was aggression from the Knights. They were deep in Obey's jungle.
Some mages have the same threat as Ra, but nowhere near the same precision that he's able to bring. You know, if Wolfie's just off the mark there, Cuo stays alive. You have Scylla, yeah, there's still enough damage there. Hebo, there's still enough damage there. But I think the ability to shoot through a wall at that range while staying safe because the rest of the Knights are trying to dive you, it's something only Ra can bring here. And this pick, so far proving not only its worth here, but I think we're going to see it continually throughout the game, right? Again, the out-of-combat healing, sometimes maybe in-combat healing, depending on where he drops his heal, but also the ability to confirm objectives, maybe even more kills here as Scary D gets locked in.
Well, they know he doesn't have his ultimate. The dash allows him to get back underneath the tower, and with Cuo Fred here, they can't keep up the chase. Great work there as somehow Scary D is able to hold on. And to go back to that last play we saw where Cuo was diving Sino back near the Chaos side speed, I mean, you got to give Sino a ton of credit for redirecting that fight back towards his allies. He uses the Suku jump to go back past them, then blinks back into the mid lane, and that's what sets up for Cuo Fred to fall in trade. I think Sino knew he was probably dead and just wanted to make sure they got the trade.
And it's, again, like you said, a good call, because the way he circles back, the first initial circle back was nowhere near the rest of his team. It wasn't until that blink that really locked him down. And, you know, best case scenario, you get out of there with your life just because you had to expend your blink. Worst case scenario, you know, Cuo blinks in and has to trade his own life because now he's used his ult, everything he has to get out of there. Unfortunately for Sino, it's not enough of a lead just yet, though, that I think we are going to get to see this shine. But they've shown exactly how these knockups are going to work and the control they have against the Knights.
Somersault Cloud forced out from Ducky. That's pressure from Scary D and Cuo Fred working together to get that ultimate cooldown out of the Obey solo laner. That guarantees the Tier 1 tower over in right. So now about a 2,000 gold lead or so for the Pittsburgh Knights, 12 minutes in. It's nice, but certainly not unbeatable as the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel forces Wolfie to use his ultimate in the middle lane. Bobby was looking for a driving strike after couldn't find it, and now Pittsburgh Knights are going to continue their right side of the map dominance by starting up the Pyromancer. Inbound is on his way and has the ultimate. If he has the timing on this, then he might be able to steal it or just flat out delay them. Scary D and the Knights end up dropping the objective. Not bad from Inbound to rotate over, have the game sense to stop that objective going down.
I like the mentality from the Knights, though. You can see Neil, I mean, you come out of that with one of two things, or well, maybe one of three things. Either a kill onto Wolfie, which I think is the least likely scenario, his beads, or his ult. Once his ult is gone, it opens up a little bit easier time on these objectives. The problem is, like you highlighted, the boulder is still there. And, you know, not as much damage, not as easily secured as something as like a Raw ult or maybe even a Scylla ult or things like that, but at the same time, it's such a threat that you have to be careful. If you don't have that same kind of burst, which the Knights just don't around everybody, unless Zap wants to rotate all the way over there to ult it himself. So I love the fact that Inbound had that heads-up play, and the way that the Obey are playing that entirely. But I think Neil's in the right spot, trying to get rid of Wolfie's ult as much as possible, force him to use it in awkward moments, so that during a team fight or during an objective, he has to fall back on something else.
But I do wonder if Obey are already in a bad spot just because they haven't been able to be more active throughout this early game. I mean, this comp is certainly still going to be strong late. They've got all this sustained. I mean, Cupid's not going to get any worse, right? Raw's still going to be strong, but the Knights with this Rom, this Hebo, they're going to get really scary the later this game goes. As Obey have started up the Gold Fury, it's down to half HP. Right there to try and stop it is Neo Moss, and back up from Paul, and Obey reset the objective. In fact, on the top side, Cuo Fred is fighting, has to use the Mystic Rush. That's the ultimate to get away. So Obey Alliance don't give up much of anything and force out Cuvo's ult.
That's a good thing to grab, but I don't know if that's going to be enough. When it comes to the objective play, they're going to need a big zone, right? And as you were just pointing out, the later this game goes, I think Obey still have a lot. And ordinarily, I would start to look at who's going to be the hyper carry, right? Late game, Zap's going to be able to do a lot, much like I expect his damage to be big here as he's locking down inbound.
Uses the bead so he can roll forward. Inbound gets the pull. That delays some of the damage with the snipe from Wolfie. Maybe a bit off the mark. Didn't get everything they were looking for. Wowie has the Aegis as the last shot. Finds no damage. Crushing Wave nearly gets the kill on the Wowie, but Paul gets it with the water hands from range. The knockup is there too. Paul buying as much time as humanly possible on the Hebo, but will eventually fall. The rest of the Knights, though, considering backing up. Zapman knows he's low, has to retreat, pops the steroid, and is just going to pump out what damage he can. And it's almost enough. Ducky gets the double, but ends up dying for it on the backside. A 3 for 2, I believe, for the Pittsburgh Knights, so I suppose they come out on top, but what a bloodbath.
Well, Sino's still in trouble. Neil wants to get aggressive, but this might be a little overzealous. You're taking a lot of damage. Neil's going to trade his life out. At the end of the day, though, Finch, I still think it favors the Knights, right? You lose Neil, but look who you picked up. The solo, the jungle, the carry. Exactly who you want to try and kill in all of that. And I think Inbound was right before all of that. So yeah, you still get the support on top of it, but I think the 3 ladder kills are maybe the most important to try and lock down. And, you know, we're looking at it, and I think Paul makes a heads-up play here, but it's more than just where he goes and how aggressive he was in there. Because that's a lot of damage, especially the Crushing Wave, which we had highlighted with that Rod of Tahuti. But immediately afterwards, showcasing why he wanted that much power in his build, because he got block stacks there. It's going to hurt Sino, it's going to hurt Inbound, it's going to hurt Wowie, it's going to hurt Ducky. I think Paul here is in a great position with this Hide of the Nemean Lion to be a little more aggressive. It's still not, you know, easy being a Hebo out there. You get locked down and you're gone. Atlas of the Yellow River can only do so much to help you disengage. But I think it's going to allow him to get into those positions where either he's going to live a little bit longer because he has the protections, or the block stacks are going to let him get off at least one more ability, and that might help him find some turnarounds late game.
But I think we saw what is going to make this game really difficult for Obey the later this goes on, and I really think it's Zapman on this ROM. His sort of machine gun ability, when he's able to pop that pick-me-up, that second ability, that steroid, so he can get off a bunch of shots in a row. He's slowing them with the astral arrows. Who would really punish us often is those frontliners, because he's able to shred through them. They're slowed and stuck at the front of the engagement, and he's got such damage potential. They're able to pick him relatively for free. Not too dissimilarly from what we might see happen here to Ducky. He makes it up to the sky, just barely, with the Somersault Cloud. It's Paul that gets pulled back in, thanks to the ultimate coming out from Sino, but it's Sino who falls first. Ducky gets the Paul on the backside, though, to at least make it 1-for-1 mid laner for jungler, as way in the back, Cubo continues to battle with Ducky. He gets the double kill, and now Wolfie is stuck trying to battle Scary D. He cannot handle the pressure from the Cthulhu. It's 3-for-1 in favor of the Knights, and they are not slowing down yet, able to hunt down Inbound, make it a 4-for-1.
Yeah, I'm starting to get scared for Obey's perspectives coming forward here, right? Wowie, multiple times, just because he hasn't been able to make it to the fight by the time it's over, hasn't been able to do anything, you know, hugely successful in this game, and unfortunately, Sino, Wolfie, they keep getting caught out. I think your engage on DePaul there is about as great as you could want, right? Inbound gets the knockup, Sino gets the ult, they lock him down, and then Paul just decides to ruin their lives at that point with an ult. And it's just the amount of damage that it does so early on and so quickly to turn it around that, yeah, he loses his life for it, but that's the kind of trade he's more than happy to make. And I think everyone on the Knights seem to be in that mentality. I might die, but we're going to take 4 of you with us. So does it really matter at the end of the day if I'm 1, 2, and 4? If all of you are going down, and guess where those kills are going? Onto our Cthulhu, who's going to help carry this game, and onto the Raven, who as of right now has a 2-level lead over Euro Wheelish. I think the Knights are just playing this well, and unfortunately Obey's teamfight just seems to be a little bit too disconnected.
That Nemean is coming up big. You're so right to highlight it. I mean, once the Wheelish pulls you in, she wants to get the autos off on the back of it, and a lot of the times that won't be the case, at least if Paul is the target. He now has that Soul Reaver finish, so he's got some percent pen there to help out with the Rada Tahuti. That should help out with the build a lot. As Ducky has that dash interrupted, he's rooted, but still has the Somersault Cloud, so an actual kill should be pretty hard to come by for the Knights. They managed to push him back out as they've got a couple members on this side of the map, but still not Zapman, who I thought would be a problem for Obey later on, but Pittsburgh Knights won that fight pretty handily, and Zapman was nowhere to be found, so maybe they don't need him.
Hey, that's a scary thought, though, right? I mean, think about it.
It is
these
scary.
4 guys are being able to win this fight, and Zap's not even over here yet, and he almost turned a kill around. Wow, he was virtually dead earlier. So I think once he starts rotating in, it gets even scarier for Obey. But I just love this. You can tell the Knights are controlling Obey. And it's maybe, look at the map, look at the way the fights have been going. Tower-wise, they've only been able to take 1. But it's actually in the relics. Whenever a solo laner, in my mind, is forced to get beads, it showcases how, I guess, tormented they are in this game. And Ducky right now is forced to play defensively, selfishly, for Wukong, who already is survivable in almost any circumstance.
Inbound has already fallen. Cuo gets that kill. Ducky still holding onto the ultimate. Can't get it charged in time as Paul flattens him mid-charge to get up to the Somersault Cloud. And I think this is what you were alluding to. The fact that Ducky feels this threatened CC-wise, even on one of the safest gods in the game in Sun Wukong, kind of speaks to the level of control that the Knights have. Sino is now the one in trouble. The Rom is there to cut him off, but Saito just going to run away. At this point, he'll make himself so unattractive to chase that maybe the Knights will just give up on it, but it looks like they're still going on the hunt. Good luck catching up to Suku. It's hard to get much faster than that.
Yeah, I think there's maybe some secret path in there. If Cuo and Scary had tried to cut off Sino, they might have been able to, tail end, very risky, grab that kill, or at least root him. But it would have been such a 6-head play. You had to get there. It's not going to happen easily. So I like the way the Knights are doing it. Plus, I mean, everything they've done, at least at this point, feels kind of low risk for them. I mean, the most plays early on, trading 1 for 1, definitely going to hurt you. But lately, I just haven't felt like any of them are in a true danger. And, first god I ever diamond was Hebo, but I still underestimate how much Paul does, and I feel like Obey are kind of in the same boat, where it's just like, there's no way he's going to be able to lock us down. But Paul's hitting like a truck this early on, still only 4th in terms of player damage, but considering all of those have come down from just really solid ults, I think it's something to be worried about. The fact that Scary D is as in the game as he is showcases maybe a lack of attention from Obey over there on the solo lane.
Cuo Fred's been pulled in. The snipe from Wolfie wasn't there in time to secure that Cuo Fred would fall. Perhaps the overhead kick was enough to allow him to immune it. Either way, Obey now falling back. That combo, pulling them in with the Wheelish ult and then having Wolfie snipe them, seems pretty central to their success to me, and they have not been as successful with it as I think they would have liked up until this point. It's a strong combo, and I think the timing is there. They just got to make sure they're able to execute it going forward.
But again, this is where things are getting awkward, right? Map state, no one in terms of map control is realistically in a position to win the game. But that's what makes this scarier to me. That's about, 8,000 gold in favor of the Knights right now.
Oh, they're in the
lead. They just got their second tier 1, right? There's so much gold on the map for them. And the fact that they have this much control just through passive farming and the small objectives they've taken up to this point, 1 Fury, and I believe only 1, maybe 2 Pyromancers, that's insane to think about how much control and farm they've been stripping away. And you can kind of see it in experience. I mean, there's about a half level there in the jungle, 1 level there in solo lane, 1 in mid. But for the most part, it's not, translating so poorly for Obey into levels. It's just all in itemization right now.
The Knights are going to post up next to the Fury, ready to pick that up the second it spawns. Obey Alliance have the tough mental task of deciding whether or not they come in, and it looks like they've made things easier on themselves by just saying no. And I think they might be correct here, Go. I don't know if 7,000 gold down, a neutral fight around the Gold Fury is really their best chance. They might be better off trying to use this time to farm and looking to see if they can get a fight under a structure to help ease some of this gold burden they're facing.
Didn't do it. I was hoping. So as a support, one thing you learn very early on, It's not that easy building only tank items and trying to take a jungle buff, so Inbound would still probably be doing it. Might forfeit his life if he had, but I always like the idea of stealing away a speed buff. I think it's one of those small factors in game that tilts the jungler, and it's never a huge tilt, it's always just a minor inconvenience. It's never anything that's going to sit with them, but you know, it keeps them awakened, just a little bit. Like they're going to bed, and that one time they lost their speed buff crops up into their mind, much like some embarrassing moment from like high school or something like that, and you're just like, man, I can't believe I lost my speed buff there. How could they have taken it? And it's that kind of in your head that I think Obey could honestly use right now. Especially because, again, most of these team fights have been without Zapman. I think the first time we really got to see him join them was over there for the Oni Fury. Now they're going to get a Fire Giant. It's going to cost them a tower, maybe two, but this is a good play for the Knights.
And I don't think that this is happening by accident for Obey. The way that they're grouped up as on the furthest side of the map from the Fire Giant makes me feel like this is a willing decision for them to kind of give that objective up and then take their chances on their base defense. But the Pittsburgh Knights now are just about at their peak strength, man. It doesn't get a lot scarier than what they're capable of doing right now. The Silver Branch Bow down there for Zapman. I guess I'm living in the past with the pick-me-up. It's infinite arrows now for that steroid, but either way, once he procs that, should be way over the attack speed cap with this build and plenty of extra damage.
And at this point, you know, you're talking about how do I burn through the health of Ducky and Inbound? Just leave it up to Zap. Like, if I'm Paul, I don't even care about the tanks right now because Zapman will just decimate them, especially with that chin size. I mean, there's a little bit more protections picked up for Inbound, but if I'm Ducky, you're not getting into a fight, or at least getting out of one unscathed as long as Zapman's going to look at you. Having that snipe available as well, retreats aren't going to look that great. I think Obey make the only call they can in that kind of scenario where they get that tier 2, but it's hard to find a way right back into this game unless it's centered around a Phoenix defense, in which case, if Inbound gets an insane early pluck, and if he can hit 2, even better, but as long as he finds one way to get rid of maybe Scary, Neil, Cuo, Zap, honestly, just to help make sure your structure doesn't get melted while everybody else is fighting. But unless you find something great around a Phoenix defense, I think it just crumbles at this point.
They've really put all their eggs in that basket because this early game has just slowly and surely slipped away from them. I mean, obviously, we're well beyond the early game now, but this game in general has very steadily been going in the Knights' favor. And Obey have been looking for plays. We've seen them looking to see if they can set up plays around Sino's Zadaka. We've seen Wolfie rotating often to look for snipes, but they have not been able to connect. I think they've been running into issues with the safety of Robin, with the overhead kick, with Paul picking up this Nemean to cut off some of that extra damage as well. They have not really been able to safely bully Zapman. It's put them in this spot now where 13,000 gold down, they don't have a choice but to try and wait underneath the Phoenixes and hope they can win there.
There's a lot of defense. Again, the potential for them in terms of healing, they have a lot of it, not only self-healing, but team healing. So I think being able to sit back and be comfortable there, but Divine Ruin just got picked up there by Paul. Brawler's Beatstick has been online the whole time for Cuo. So I think you're going to start suffering in that area. There's a Cursed Ankh online for Neil as well. So a retreat and heal, re-engage for Obey doesn't really feel as likely as some of the other plays they could make here. And that honestly might just make them too uncomfortable and too unsafe to try and fight the Knights.
Well, the 3-2 split has worked. The left side Phoenix is already down. Wolfie's snipe may have clipped Paul there towards the tail end just off the screen, but either way, the Knights are way out in front in this fight so far. Zapman able to hit one of those shots, but not able to hit the others. That means Obey keep all their lives, but they have lost a Phoenix, and the Knights are looking to just try and reassert themselves. Zapman steps forward with the steroid already procced, wanted to put some shots into the Phoenix, but had to step back. Meanwhile, Cuo Fred has the angle, should be able to step over and find a gank. Once they step forward, more damage being put into the middle Phoenix. It's brought down to halves. Scary D has to ult. He's been brought down low in terms of health as well. I don't know if the Knights can keep this going. Those last two Phoenixes might be able to live through this.
And I think a lot of it is Ducky keeping Cuo Fred occupied. Unchecked, that Robin comes into the backline. Wowie, Sino, somebody is dead on Obey right now. But he was kept in check. The problem they have to deal with is that, yeah, you burned Cthulhu down, but Teleport was up here. One of the glories of not going beads there for Scary D, and that's going to enable him to get right back in the fight.
Snipe comes through again, does Zap set up for this kill. Wowie's able to take care of Zapman. That's a lot of their damage onto the mid lane. Phoenix gone. Wowie gets a double as Scary D falls as well. Wowie showed up for him in their first set victory earlier this weekend. Can he show up here again, stuffing them at the mid Phoenix siege? Obey were confidently waiting for maybe this. Sure, they lost to Phoenix, but Gore, what more can they get on the back of this?
Well, they saved the one, but that's the question of the day, of the year maybe right now for Obey. What can you get? There's 3 towers available for you. I don't know if I feel safe pressuring a Phoenix. There's a Primal Fury, which is helpful and not helpful all at once. If you want pressure right now, you really wish this was an Oni Fury, but I think it's going to help as the Fire Giant's coming up in 20 seconds. There's not a lot you can do to change the game state. But I think you just showcase not only that the Knights can't just walk all over you, which is kind of what people were expecting coming into today, but you can find that defense, you can burn down Scary D, twice even, since he had to teleport back into that fight. And so it's not just a walk through the park for the Knights anymore. I think they could even contest this Fire Giant. They're not in a great position right now, but with a raw snipe, Wolfie can easily strip this away, steal it away from the Knights. It's still not equal footing, Finch, but this is about as close as you're going to get at this point in the game unless you can get this buff on your team.
Wolfie has been pumping out the damage. He's leading in his team with 13,000, though he is behind Cubo and Scary D on the side of the Knights. They're going to need more of that type of miraculous Phoenix defense from Wolfie, Wowie, and the entire squad if they want to try and pull this one back around. But it looks like they're feeling confident enough to come out of the base and fight, and it looks like they were right. Wolfie takes care of Zatman again. That's twice in a row. He's put Pittsburgh Knights Hunter in the dirt, and that means the Knights are a little panicky. Scary D using the ultimate just to make it out of there, and Obey might have control of the FG pit.
That's twice now that the first kill that has been able to break through has been Zap. I don't know what he's doing that's either leaving him unsafe or what his team's doing that they're not able to peel. I think Sino in a good position there, looping around, just making sure that the Knights aren't going to be able to get away with what they've been doing all game to this point. And, you know, we were highlighting earlier on, they were winning 4v4s no problem, but with Wowie in the equation, you have to have Zap to balance that out. His damage is going to be, I think, a little bit higher overall if he can stay alive for it. But as of right now, no one's giving him the opportunity. And it's, once again, inbound, actually, setting up the play. Wolfie being in the right place to find the snipe. That's the kind of synergy this team brings together. And that's the thing I wanted to see. When we saw it locked in on Friday, I was curious. And I'll be honest, I was nervous seeing Inbound pick this up, but I think Obey going back to it, showing what they can do here, and having Inbound, you know, set up these sick plays. It's only been 6, but 6 out of 9 is pretty solid for his hit record right now. And it's been on Zap, which might be the #1 target on the team.
That combo is strong. We thought it was Sino setting up for Wolfie, but that time Inbound on the Hercules was able to make the play happen. The Knights, though, not going to let Obey revel in that small victory for long. The Knights have pulled the Fire Giant again, and Obey are here this time to play some defense. The Knights have all their relics, except for the beads for Zapman, certainly worth noting, but the ultimate's all available as well. So it shouldn't be too hard for them to defend on this one. They have to keep an eye on Wolfie. That snipe poses so much steal potential. No way the Knights can out-confirm it, except maybe a crushing wave. Sino is on the bottom of this fight, but it looks like the Knights are done with the objective. The roll from Zapman has come as they've started to back up, but Scary D and Cuo Fred are diving. It's a 2v5 in the backline for them, and they're not winning it so far. Scary D ends up falling as Ducky gets the kill, but Paul able to take care of Sino, so both of the divers, Sino and Scary D, end up falling.
I'm a little curious about that from the Knights. I mean, I understand where their mindset was, but it felt weird to take such a disjointed fight. Scary D, maybe hoping he could stay alive a little bit longer, something. I mean, he kept 4 members distracted on his lonesome, so that's always going to be nice for them. You could tell, like you said, the Knights not really feeling confident in trying to burn down the Fire Giant, especially with that snipe available from Wolfie. But, you know, committing so much, trading solo for jungle maybe ends up being worthwhile for you. Your carries are a little safe for the next 30 seconds. But you don't get a whole lot out of that for really either squad. In fact, I'd argue for Obey, you're maybe left in a slightly better position because you can still contest and fight the Knights. And they're not going to be open for a Fire Giant. Pyromancer's down. Fury's still down. There's no towers for the Knights to try and aggress on. So they just need an old-fashioned fight, and they might have just found a way to separate Obey. But the problem is trying to successfully keep them all locked away.
Knights again back in position around this Fire Giant buff, but this time Obey are going to come in with a lot less relics. Wolfies are completely gone, and Inbound has been isolated early on in this skirmish, and Cuo Fred gets the kill. Great work from the Knights to lock down a pick early, and I think they're done with this little bit of dancing around the Fire Giant, stepping forward and looking for more action. Obey doesn't give it, so the Knights come right back to the objective. Wolfie still has the snipe though, Gore, so I don't know how safe this is. But look at Obey, they're kind of falling back. I think that the Knights have earned this one.
There's not much you can do. Like you said, Wolfie potentially able to come up and try and steal it, but I mean, I'm not going to walk up to the Knights as a Ra all alone. I'm not going to walk up as Ducky with a Ra, right? I think that they just don't have the build and the control on that part of the map to do it and feel safe. Otherwise, the Knights just turn, kill you incredibly quick, then get the Fire Giant anyway. This way, they save their lives. They have all 3 Phoenixes respawned as of right now. Left is a little weakened, and that gives Wolfie good defense. And Ra, I think he's solid on defense. His damage output is going to be insane here.
Ducky comes in right away. The stun means that man does get hit by the snipe, but still standing until Sino makes his way to the backline, and without the ROM, again, they're losing a lot of their structure damage. The Knights intentionally went for the mid-Phoenix, the healthy Phoenix, as Paul puts good damage into Wolfie. Obey has been pushed out, and that means that man's sacrifice was not in vain. They got this all-important middle Phoenix, but Scary D has de-transformed. The Heart Bomb is on him. No stun, though, and the Knights should be able to disengage successfully. The mid-Phoenix, so important because the left Phoenix is already weakened. They can go back to that one and be favored.
There's 3 things, though, that you really want Zapman's damage for and what he's going to kill fast. It's Inbound, it's Ducky, and it's objectives. And unfortunately, when you lose him, you can see how long it takes him to get that Phoenix and what feels like it should have been much faster, especially with Fire Giant. So I like how Obey are targeting Zap because it's controlling the way the Knights play this and prolonging the game.
That's why they value the Raw, as Inbound gets knocked up, is able to live through the damage. Scary D, the lowest member here, and he does not have the ultimate. Going to make it a lot harder for him to stay safe. As Cuo Fred and Ducky could end up in a little battle, they end up letting that go as Obey pulled the Oni Fury again. It's down to half, and I can tell the Knights would love to find a reset, but they're trying to defend this Oni. The Whirlwind of Rage and Steel comes out for Neil. That gets them to drop the Oni Fury, but he might lose his life for it, makes it to the wall, and is able to leap over, so Neil Ma is safe. Well played from the Knights support, but still, I think Obey are doing a good job to keep them here.
Not only safe, keeps all his relics throughout all of that. While they did burn some of the cooldowns in the items, they kept this Oni Fury going. It puts the Knights in an awkward spot.
The Knights feel they have to stick around and play defense. Wolfie's ultimate is back up. They pull back in Scary D, who still doesn't have the ultimate, and they were correct. They had the burn potential, and Scary D falls early. Sino gets the credit, but Mystic Rush from Cuo Fred. Goomba stops Wowie to set up a 1-for-1. Way low is Cuo Fred, but he's made it out of there. Now it's time for Zapman to feel his moment. Takes care of Inbound. Sino is on the run on Suki, and Obey Alliance maybe gamble a bit too much around the Oni, and now they've lost a 2-for-1.
They lose their duo lane, which honestly, in terms of power curve, I still think they have the ability to cause the Knights some trouble on a defense, but it's only on the defense, right? This Oni Fury, you've been dancing around for so long, it's gone for you as far as you're concerned. Yeah, you get another Fire Giant buff taken away, but that left Phoenix is still weakened. Now the Knights are going to have some reinforced minion waves, and even though Zap doesn't have a Fire Giant, that doesn't mean too much for him in terms of his ability to kill this Phoenix off, and I think that's exactly what the Knights want. Halfway to respawn is the mid-Phoenix, so if they can get this one, it gives them a distinct advantage. And, you know, we're approaching 40 minutes. I'm incredibly happy for Obey holding on to this one. But unless they find something honestly similar to what they just did in the mid lane, I don't know if they're going to find themselves a solid defense or put themselves in a good win state just yet.
Gonna be difficult for them from here, but now Pittsburgh Knights have the left side Phoenix and the mid Phoenix now. That means only the right, only the solo lane Phoenix still standing for Obey. Oni minion waves starting to move up. You can see them in the mid and left side lanes made a bit more progress than over in right where the waves were pushed up. But the Knights have reestablished, I feel like, their control over this game. It's not so much through the itemization lead, even though I believe they do still have it, but it's in this map pressure they have now. It's going to be way harder for Obey to try and defend another Fire Giant when they have to defend all these Fire minion waves.
It's going to be difficult. right? Especially because it's all the way over there and left. You have Oni minions immediately pouring in that you have to back and deal with. And you know what? Wolfie, he's really good at clearing waves. But you know what's really good for the Knights? Not having to stress about the healing and the raw snipe that Wolfie brings with him into the equation. If he's over there and left, then Pyromancer, more specifically the big one right after, the Fire Giant, is just so much easier for the Knights to be able to collapse in on, seal the deal on, without having to stress about it. They know they have 30 seconds with it, and I mean, they've got the vision to cover this as well. No one on Obey is nearby. Sino's off in the middle of nowhere right now. I think he was going for this nice long-range, like, rope around, and he might still be able to find it. If they kill Zap off at the beginning of the fight again, that's an easy way to find a win.
Cuo Fred is still lurking at the back of this fight. I wonder if he has an idea that Sino is down here somewhere as a rogue agent all on his own. Either way, the Fire Giant has just crashed back in. Sino now spotted by Scary D, so they know where he's at. They're willing to commit, knocks him off the Suku for the first time, and Scary D goes into the ultimate. The knockup is there as well, as Sino knows he has to hold this leap, but he doesn't get a chance. Cuo Fred with the blink, they delete Sino, and now I wonder how much they even worry about the FG. A full minute where Sino's not there, maybe you just get straight to the push, but with Zapman and Neil's positioning, they want this EFG. 40 minutes in, they're going to burn the biggest objective on the map and then look to push.
Sino showed that with high reward, the reward which would have been, killing Zapman for free in the backline, there's also high risk, and the risk unfortunately caught him before the reward could be grabbed there. And now with an EFG, I mean, mid-Phoenix already weakened, halfway until it respawns over there for left. There's not a lot for Obey. 30 seconds without Sino, who's been a huge chunk of damage diverting these Phoenix pushes. You have to hope that, again, inbound, Wolfie, Wowie, the three ults, the way they can connect together, the damage they can output will be insane, but you have to be alive for it.
Gotta make sure they're here. Wolfie has used the ultimate. Zapman is a little low, but not getting quite the same value that I think they've come to expect from that combination as the Knights continue to pressure the right side wave. Now they're moving all the way in. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel from Neil first pushes them back. Right side Phoenix is down, and Fields of Love only hits the support. Snipes from Zapman are on the mark, and Wowie falls early on, drops back down, gets some help from the crushing wave as way in the back. Sino falls first. A double kill for Zapman as they continue to push forward. Only Ducky, Wolfie, and Inbound left as the rest of the group are going to stick around Ducky, not going to let him make it out of here for free. The knockup is there from Paul. The roll in for Zapman as he gets the delayed triple on the Phoenix Seeds. And now Obey only have two members to try and keep their Titans standing. Cuo Fred keeps one member zoned out. Zapman pumps the damage into the actual Titan, and there's no way Wolfie can defend it all on his own. The Pittsburgh Knights in 41 minutes take care of Obey.
And everything they do in this circumstance just feels solid for them, right? I mean, great picks early on. We were talking about it. The desk had mentioned it. You want to roll it back a while. And we're talking about how if they can get a lead in the early game for Obey, then their late game becomes very dominant. And unfortunately, the only lead I remember seeing crop up was slowly 1,000 for the Knights, 2,000 for the Knights, 4,000, and then it just grew and grew from there. It got out of hand for them. But I will say this for Obey. Holding on for 40 minutes where you're losing for what felt like 25 of them is insane to be able to do. And it also put them in a state where some of those fights, if they were able to get just one more right after, they win this game. They run it down mid, they kill a Phoenix, and they end the Titan. So I think they're still in the right mindset, and they've made a lot of improvements week to week to week. And the fact that they keep the Knights in this for 41 minutes, it shows a lot.
It does show a lot, but Obey are going to have to show us they can get beyond stalling and find a way to get offensively into a chance that can maybe get them a dub. An impressive win, though, or impressive game, as you said, to take the 41, but not enough for the win. That's going to do it for us casting this first game. Get it back to the desk to break down what they saw.
A lot, but not enough for Obey here in game number one. The Knights controlling the early game. Things slowed down a little bit, 41 minutes long. But eventually the Knights were able to actually find a sneaky pick onto Sino in the back there, aggro, and then the 4v5 just snowballs out of control into the base. I think Cuo Fred had a fantastic game here. One of the guys we highlighted going into it said he needed to have a big day, and he's at least started it off as such here in game one.
Really the classic Fred experience, going back to the Robin, getting that early pressure, and just making really, really strong mechanical plays to put himself in a position to succeed. This is exactly what I think PK needed to do here up against Obey. Now, 41 minutes, it's a bit of a lengthy game one, but it really wasn't ever in doubt. And the PK was in control from minute 1 to minute 41.
And you know, we looked at a few of those Obey picks, wondering if the value would continue to be met that we saw them bring during their win on Friday. I think this Raw was definitely something we looked at. Difficult, I guess, when you have Cuo Fred running at you, but I wonder what your thoughts are on the Raw this game and maybe some of the value that did or did not find.
I thought Wolfie played very well. I don't know that he could have done a whole lot else on a different god. I think that it wasn't really the Raw for me. It was this Hercules again for inbound was not very impressive at all. He was down a ton to Neil individually, even very early on in this game. I think you and I were talking, it was a 2K lead for the Pittsburgh Knights. Like 1,800 of it almost was on supports. And that's not exactly where you want your lead to be built, but that's kind of how it happened there for PK. I think inbound didn't have a very good game. I think Sino had really struggled finding his spots. Like I said, this composition for Obey just does not play well from behind. And I think they actually deserve credit for playing as well as they did from behind, because they were on the back foot all game long, and they still found a way to make some plays, which I do not think was very easy to do with their draft. So you got to give them at least some credit in that way, but maybe we don't draft in that way so that we actually have a chance if things don't immediately go in their direction.
That's right. Well, we'll see if some of the curious picks or overlooked picks maybe from Game 1 has changed here in picks and bans for Game number 2. Remember, the Freya completely overlooked as far as the first 6 picks goes and in all the first bans, and really by the end of the day, not looked at. Amaterasu falls into that category here as well. So I think interesting nonetheless that both of these teams have shown, all right, fine, you know, we can make things work without the Freya here on our side. Wonder where the Hercules then falls in that conversation as well. I think Cthulhu for Scary D has to be looked at. It is an interesting meta, I think, point where we're at, Aggro, where there is so much strong that needs to be banned, and then you also want to ban out specific gods against specific players on the enemy team. It's very interesting watching where these priorities lie.
And PK is kind of in a different spot as they were in game number 1, because first pick gets a lot more options in terms of how many priority bans do we want to use, how many target bans do we want to use. And now they're kind of stuck in a spot where they're going to be giving something up either way, especially after that Robin ban by Obey, taking that away from Fred. PK sticks to the Erlong. Remember, they also banned that Horus in game number 1. Seems like Obey really value Olaron, think that he's pretty strong because they were worried about him in game number 1 as well. I don't think you have to ban Freya in this spot. I think you probably ban Cthulhu would be my bet here if you're PK. And now Obey, they've already shown they don't prioritize Freya, at least in their last draft. They didn't prioritize Freya. They clearly value Wukong over Amaterasu, or else they would have picked Ama over the Wukong in game number 1. So what is Obey first pick? The Horus? The Cupid? Sure. The PK is probably just fine with that. Now Neil can get Hercules if he wants it. You can wait on that because I don't know if Obey is going to be willing to pick it again. I mean, PK, I think, has put themselves in a pretty good position here.
All right, see you later, Mac. She had enough of watching the pick bans there. God, now Mac's on the cam convincing me not to get a dog is just getting so much more difficult.
Dave, listen. You should get a dog. You should get the dog.
All right, fine.
It's a dog.
Decided here.
They're your best friends.
Right, live now in picks and bans for Game 2, we've decided. So keep your eyes on an update for that at some point later on. Amaterasu looked over in Game 1, not looked over here for Game number 2. So the Cupid priority strong there for Obey, but you're going to give up this Amaterasu, this Nemesis on the back end. Admittedly, we've talked a little bit about Fred and the Nemesis, so an opportunity maybe for Fred to put together a good performance here in Game number 2 on a pick that hasn't maybe met its full marks in the past.
It's a good point for sure, but I still think that PK is correct to go with this pick. I think the Cupid first pick was there from Obey to be like, don't pick them. It's a bad matchup for her, so you don't want her. Trust me, don't pick her. And PK kind of see through that and just kind of lock it anyways. It's sprint, a beads, and Fred will be just fine. I was expecting Horus before the second ban phase, and Obey do get it alongside this Wukong again for Ducky. if you're PK here, you can go with the ROM, make sure you get that matchup that Zapman likes, it seems, in that 1v1 up against the Cupid. You can prioritize a pick for Paul in this spot, but I kind of like Hercules personally, just getting that for Neil and setting yourself up for a great early game.
That's right, there's the ROM locked in now by the Knights. So I like this Horus pick. I kind of want to zoom in on it. Something that Inbound, at least in you know, some of the games earlier this weekend, showed us is a very strong pick here for him. So I think Obey has done a good job of getting Inbound something that we have seen work for him in the past, and getting that best foot forward. It's going to be a tough long lane to fight into for the Knights for sure, a Cupid and a Horus, but I think to your point, Aggro, the ROM, a strong answer back into that. A Wheelix strong enough from Sino, or maybe into the draft specifically of PK to ban out here by the Knights. Morgan as well, this is what we saw in game number 1, Paul-centric bans down that second wave, so not much changes up to this point, except maybe that a Wheelix ban, slightly interesting.
I think so. I think that if Obey don't ban Hercules, maybe they're hoping that they can just build Saab and then punish PK for being 4 physical, though that really hasn't worked for a ton of different teams because 4 physicals hasn't really been a problem for a lot of teams in the SPL here. I still feel like the Xingqian can work, but the Hercules for Neil just makes so much sense to me. It just gives you such instant lane pressure that it's kind of hard to pass up.
Now, one thing, you know, I've noticed, actually, I'm glad that this gets locked in. That's what I was going to bring up. For a while, Aphrodite and Hell were insta-bans against Paul, and maybe it's just the nature of the meta, where there's so much strength elsewhere that you have to ban out. You can't quite afford to take both of those away from Paul. But we haven't seen the Paul Hell, the Paul Aphrodite here in a little while, but we're going to get a look at it in Game 2.
I love it. And the Naja pick is an ambitious one here by Obey because that cleanse is going to really throw a wrench in that Naja's plan. But it's not an easy window. I mean, you already have to be in light stance. You can't switch in reaction to the sash on someone else. You won't have time. And Naja Raza classic combo. Obey, I like their draft, but I think this Hell is going to be really, really problematic for them. Naja can really struggle against Nemesis because how does he ever get away from her once she starts to slow him? It's very, very difficult. Xingqian there is a CC immune ult right away, and Neil, I thought, played fantastically on this pick. I still think Hercules would have gotten me a little bit more excited for PK's draft, but really it's just a lot of tension here in my mind between the very single target CC that Obey have in Horus and Naja and the cleanse from Hell on top of the Cupid ult as well. I mean, it's really easy to cleanse that. I think if Paul has even an average game for himself on this Hell, I think that this pick alone can shut down what Obey want to do.
And depending on how, you know, Amaterasu plays around some of that, dazzling offensive can be used as a dazzling defensive, I guess, every once in a while. Not how you want to use that ultimate, but I guess if you have to, under the pressure of Obey, certainly possible there. Obey have opted for similar composition from what we saw in Game 1. Pressure still for Inbound Horse this time instead of the Hercules swap out on the jungle. Figuring in a 40-minute game, the composition maybe wasn't the issue. Obey looking to fight back here. Game number 2, Knights, they can take it with the win. Finch and Gore will take us through it.
Thanks again, Dolson and Aggro. It is indeed still Finch and Gore here as Paul is on one of his signature picks here in the Hell in the middle lane. I think they were right to focus on it so much, Gore, because as much as I think the cleanse is going to be critical and really putting a wrench in Obey's plans, the sustain, the late game prowess of it, the ROM, this Nemesis, the Ama, that's all scary for me if I'm an Obey fan. It feels like they've got to get off to a big lead quick.
Yeah, in the first phase, one of the biggest turnarounds we got to see for the Knights when they were kind of struggling against a lot of teams was Scary D on this Amaterasu. And you know, I think much to what Aggro was saying, that if Paul even has an average game for himself on this Hell, then it's going to be incredible for the Knights, or solid for them at least in terms of dealing with Obey. But I do think it's a little unfair. Paul's average game is still pretty much better than a lot of mid laners' game, just in general.
Yes.
So it is definitely going to be a good game for this Hell. I think this is the early time that you can maybe cause some trouble for her, though. I mean, her clear puts her in danger around the Ra, and she's not going to have maybe as much going for her as early as Ra will. So maybe you could put some pressure onto this mid lane as a Naja quickly.
Inbound and Wowie, speaking of pressure, have already seemingly lost it here in the long lane. No big surprise. Rom gets that pressure pretty frequently with those astral arrows as a start, and I think you're right to hone in on Scary D's presence in this game. Ama hasn't been quite as valued today as I thought we would have seen. This is, our 5th game of SMITE, and we've only seen her pick her band maybe, twice up until this point, but still, I think that Scary D is going to give a great demonstration of why she should maybe be seen a little bit more often. The ultimate creates so many opportunities, obviously the first ability too, and Scary D, I think, really seems to jive with this pick, really seems to get along with this Amaterasu pick, so I'm expecting some good things out of the solo and mid.
And I think you can't really underestimate her damage. Her passive plays into a lot of it, right? The protection shred she brings in there as well. But there's also small things in her kit that 90% of the time they mean nothing. You're not going to see them at play, and it's like her silence on her dash, right? It's not going to make a huge difference most of the time, but sometimes that 1 second that you're just not able to get done what you were trying to, all of a sudden can change the pace of the game, and I think that's something we might end up seeing throughout the duration of this. Of course, it depends on how Scary D wants to play and how aggressive he's going to be. He and the rest of the Knights can kind of play with reckless abandon once Hell gets online. Right now, that healing, it's nice, but it's not the end-all, be-all. In about 20 minutes, though, they're going to be swinging like it's nothing.
Sino, though, wants to get this game started quickly, looking for Scary D with the slow and gets the last basic necessary. Cutting it close on that one, but that's how Sino likes it to work. Obey are on the board first.
And being able to get that first blood bounty, again, something they were missing last game was any early game pressure. And now Cuo seems a little deep. I thought the duo lane from Obey was going to rotate over and cause some trouble for him, but instead, he actually looks like he wants to go in and get just a little cheeky damage in there. But it's impressive that they let that one go, right? I think a lot of other teams might collapse in, at least cause some distress for this Nemesis. But she gets to just walk away.
Nemesis is one of those gods that it can feel tough trying to commit to sometimes with the dash, with the shield, and her turnaround potential. So perhaps that's what Obey considering as they elect to let that one go, prioritizing the farm instead of perhaps looking for these kills. But this is a great way for Obey to start, because we were already thinking that if Obey are going to win this game up against this really strong draft from the Knights, then it would require them to get started early, and they still have a combo that we saw them working pretty well in game 1, which is Wolfie ult into literally anything else, right? Horus knock up and stun, Sino with getting his sash, even Ducky finding a Tiger stun. They've got the single target setup to where Wolfie could potentially take any member out of the fight early, and if game 1's any indication, it'll likely be Zapman they're looking at.
And again, you say that, if I'm Zapman's beads or Paul's beads, I'm quaking in my boots right now, just knowing how much is going to depend on that. Although Paul alleviates some of that stress. The single target damage is high, but since it's all single target, Cleanse is going to do a pretty good job of making sure you can save them. So maybe Zapman's beads, especially late game when they're grouped up, can take a breather for themselves. But early on, I expect an intensive workout overall. Get rid of his ult, his beads, as much as he possibly can. I think this Naja is going to be great at locking down that ROM, or at least making Zapman panic.
Sino has another victim, and it is indeed Zapman. He's being brought right back to Earth, and Wolfie is there, and that is the combo that if Obey is going to win this game, that one is going to have to work, Gore. They're showing it there by taking down Zap.
It's so much damage, Finch. It's almost gross how much damage just landed into Zap. You see Sino go up in the air, and it's like 79, 79, and you're like, okay, that's nothing. Like, okay, Zapman's just gonna get down from this and shrug it off. Like, maybe he's not happy, but he's still at half health, and then it just all disappears in the blink of an eye. And unfortunately for the members of Knights, especially over here on the duo side, it's much easier to kill off Neil because you have this Horus as well. It's not just single target damage that he's going to be bringing, but it's that prot shred that's going to make it easier to kill a Guardian early on. So the Knights are going to have to look elsewhere like this.
Ducky traded his ultimate up against Scary D in lane, so he doesn't have the safety. Great positioning from Cuo Fred, gets in the way to body block, and Ducky ends up falling, and the Knights needed that, didn't they? An answer back to some of this early pressure that Obey's been putting out. Ideally, I think you'd find a way to get to Sino on that Naja, but you'll settle for finding some kills elsewhere and getting a good one onto Ducky. As Neil Mon a little bit of trouble as well, narrowly getting out of what could have been certainly a bad situation.
Sino and Wolfie want to be aggressive here still, but Sino actually might end up hurting himself. I mean, that's going to be great, but Wolfie's damage is just too much.
That was so aggressive from the Knights. That man rolling in, guaranteeing that Wolfie could hit the shot because there was no good mobility to get him out of range. It's a great shot there from Wolfie and the ultimate from inbound to reposition the team so that they weren't under pressure from the Knights. And now Sino has found himself another target, this time Neil Ma, and Wolfie, even without the searing pain, uses Celestial Beam to complete the combo, and Obey have quickly found 4 kills.
I love the way they're playing this. Cuo, I mean, they're low mana. He might be able to find something there, but there's still 3 of them. That's difficult, even if they are close to dead. And I love the way Obey are starting this. I don't want to take anything away from them because I almost always say this. Early game kills only mean something if you can do anything with the lead. If you can take control of the game here, you're fine. But you're still a couple hundred gold down, even though the kills read 4-1. And I think that's kind of telling for what we see out of Obey here. I think that they are able to keep this aggression up, but until they can start finding anything afterwards that turns the tables more in their favor, experience, gold, what have you, they don't mean anything. But the consistency is key. Right now they're locking them down like it's nothing. 3 of those kills fall onto Wolfie. That's what's going to be important for them. If they can keep up this pace, then I expect them to start taking the lead.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of raise a good point there. Even with these kills, the gold, at the very least, still very much even, if not very slightly favoring the Knights. They've got some experience there for Wowie out in front, and maybe a little bit for inbound too, but for the most part, I think the Knights, despite the 4-1 kill line, should be very comfortable with this game's pace, and Sino's become the target. There's that silence you mentioned, helping to lock down Sino for another moment, and Scary D gets the kill. Now Ducky in some trouble. Somersault Cloud barely coming up in time, so Ducky makes it out of there. Now it's Inbound's turn to get involved. He's looking for Paul in the back of the fight, gets some backup coming through, but the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel locks down Ducky. Paul survives, and Pittsburgh Knights get the 2-0.
Paul should not be alive right now, but he's going to get away with it because there's nothing you can do once his health bar goes from 1/4 to 3/4 in the blink of an eye. That's the problem with these early game kills, and more importantly, what Obey were able to do afterward. They were too low to get aggressive, too low to try and strip away any buffs or push any advantage they had, whereas the Knights, I mean, a swing when they're already ahead. Granted, again, small lead, 1,000 gold right now, means virtually nothing, especially if it goes something like 41 minutes like Game 1 did. But the way they're utilizing their advantages is just paying off a little bit more for the Knights here. And it's small advantages, 2 levels there in the solo lane, 1 level there in the jungle, even though you're at a deficit in the duo lane, at least for Zapman. But I say this all the time for Hunters, and I still believe it to be true. They're just waiting for items. Like, the scaling is nice, the abilities and leveling them up is nice, but 90% of the time, he just needs 2 more items on Zapman before he becomes a significant threat here. So trying to slow down his farm will be good for you, but, I mean, late game Hell, late game Cuvo, late game Scary, I don't know. There's a lot on the side of the Knights that I'm worried about if I'm Obey.
It is a lot to be concerned with. I think I share those same reservations, the trepidation about this potential success for Obey if this goes to not even have to be a similar length from Game 1, but even to 32 minutes or so, then you'd have to think the Knights are in a great spot with this Hell, with that late game Raw, as you mentioned, or ROM rather, that they've got on their side. So Obey have got to find ways, I'm thinking at the very least, to keep this combo that has worked for them going, and then to convert those kills into farm on the map. That's what we've seen. I mean, even when Sino gets these picks, or when Wolfie's able to connect the snipes, it doesn't really lead to a whole lot on the back end. It's early, it's hard for it to, but gotta make sure you're turning those kills into a little bit extra farm too.
Well, unfortunately for them, it seems like it's all starting to fall apart. The minute Sino's able to pretty much full commit anything
Good snipe
into someone and they walk away, I was going to say it maybe is going to start worrying me, but I think Wolfie just can pull anything back at this point. I think there's no reason to doubt a Raw anymore. And the right hands, it just does plays like that. No setup, just good aim and good timing.
And Aggro was talking about it. These kind of pocket picks, kind of specialty picks, I don't know if you can ban them because there's so much you have to ban in that first ban phase. So if Wolfie is going to be this strong on this pick, then that's huge for Obey. They can continue to start building around it because Wolfie should be able to pretty reliably get it if they're willing to take it with their top 3 picks. Now, even still, it hasn't quite, yielded success, right? Obey is behind in this game, even with the kill lead. But I think that Wolfie and the team has looked much better since this change has come up, since Inbound has shown us the Horus, and they've been able to find some picks where they can consistently string together some wins and some fights.
Well, we like to have that conversation, right, of what's top, what's meta, what are people picking, versus what are the pocket picks, what are the comfort picks, is the way I think we always like to word it, specifically around some of these teams. And I think Obey, much like Sanguine, the meta right now is in a very weird spot, and some teams are flourishing with it, and, I think of Ghost that come through. But Sanguine noticed a lot of strengths of ignoring what other teams are locking in, and instead just picking what they know they're strong with. And I think that's helping out Obey here.
Sino has to use the beads to get away from the Whirlwind of Rage and steals. That man falls though into the Fields of Love. Wowie looking to complete the kill, but there's too much pressure. Scary D stays on him, and Cuo Fred gets the kill. And that just goes to show the teamwork of the Knights. You gotta think Zapman is dead to rights there, but the rest of the Knights show up and bail him out. Now they can start looking at the Gold Fury and how to Obey make their way in here. They don't have Wowie anymore. This belongs to the Knights. Suddenly up 3,000 gold, even though the kills are even at 5.
Depends on the rotations that the Knights make here, but with that Pyromancer being low, it should be picked up here by Wolfie, no problem. The snipe has to come out to secure it, but they might have stayed too long. I mean, if Paul hits that slow, if it's enough of a lockdown, they could still find some kills here.
Yeah, they're in trouble. Able to make it to the Somersault Cloud is Ducky, and now getting some backup for Sino. They're able to make it out of there. Wolfie used that Aegis way at the start of that little engagement. I think that was pretty critical in preventing him from falling into an easier kill threshold. So Pittsburgh Knights have to settle for the kill in the long lane, the Gold Fury, and giving up that Pyromancer on the back end. But they're still in an excellent position here for the later this game goes. Paul is able to escape in mid lane, but it's Wowie that's in trouble. Zapman working together with Cuo Fred in the left lane get another kill onto the Obey Alliance Hunter.
Now they're getting aggressive, though. Obey, I mean, here in the red buff, Neil, there's no way you get out of there.
Whoa.
Inbound uses his ult. It's only going to move him about 10 feet, but they know where Cuo is.
I think that's the right call from Inbound. If that's a heavier commit from the Knights, then they need that ultimate. Cuo Fred using the bead so he can stay close to Wolfie, but still gets hit by that stun, the slow rather, and that means he can't keep up the chase. Paul gets the kill onto Sino. Scary D shuts down Wolfie with some help from the snipes from Zapman, and now Inbound left alone on the left side of the map, so the pressure can continue from the Knights, perfectly managing this tower aggro, but Inbound makes it back to the tier 2, narrowly avoids falling from that mirror reflect coming up from Scary D, and Wowie with the Fields of Love can't find any lockdown, so the Knights able to make it out of there.
So here's what I feel like we've seen from Obey, right? The beginning of the year, and for a lot of times, team fight-wise, they weren't able to keep up. Now they've solidified that. I mean, the kills read 6 to 8. They are not getting swept under the rug by the Knights in terms of team fight. It's everything else on the map, though, that's falling apart for them. I mean, even though they've been keeping up, even though they're only 2 kills down, it's 4,100 right now gold in favor of the Knights. It's little farming things that are making the big difference, but the fact that Obey are keeping pace with a lot of these other, again, maybe larger game things, keeps them in it for longer, right? The Knights are not so far ahead that they're just going to run away with it, similar to last game. I don't know if they can bounce them back for 41 minutes this time around, but I think Obey have the right mindset. It's just cleaning up those small things that move them forward, because right now, I mean, this gold lead, there's only been one Fury. It can't all just suddenly appear, especially with only one tower being down. So I'd love to see Obey work on these for their early game, because otherwise they're going to find themselves in this position several times. Technically, kill-wise, you're on equal footing, but gold-wise, the Knights are always coming ahead of you in these fights.
And again, I mean, we're still pretty early in this game. We're only just now getting to the 15-minute mark. There's been about as many kills as minutes in the game so far, and that might be kind of getting ahead of the time in the game, the pace of it, but the Knights are in a great spot when you consider the late-game potential and the 4K lead this early. If it's still 4K 6 minutes from now, then I think maybe Obey feel a bit better, but even still, as Ducky has his ultimate forced out in the middle lane, it's hard to imagine they can quite keep up with what Paul can do later.
The good news for Obey, though, is, at least in my eyes, a lot of this does age pretty well. Again, I'm kind of looking at it, and when I look at a team for late game potential, one of the things I try to think to myself is always, who's going to be the one getting the kills, right? Because we've seen a lot of these teams that are very good at team fight and they start off an engagement perfectly, and then all their cooldowns are wasted, all their relics are gone, and nobody can get the cleanup. Nobody can find any of those last hits that are necessary. And when I look at the Knights, I see Zapman, and I think late game, he's one of them. Cuo, Nemesis, maybe not the first one that comes to my mind, but she's going to be one of them in terms of gods. When I look at Obey, Sino has some last hit potential, Wolfie does, but Cupid, as a hunter, doesn't come to my mind that way. Wowie's Cupid does, just because of what we saw Friday. I think it was 10-2 after one of those games. But it's just one of those things. I think the later they get, they have an excellent team fight. I just don't know if they have enough follow-up to make things work outside of Wolfie's ult, which so far he's proven 4 times in a row is solid at cleaning up at least one guy.
Yeah, I mean, and just think about how differently the heals function as well. I mean, obviously, Raw has the potential to sort of match Hell's sustain in the late game with his heal. I mean, it can hit multiple people, but it's not quite the same with everyone standing in this circle together as Hell being able to apply the heal over time and then the burst healing with that first ability onto a single target. It could be a bit hard for Raw to match all of that. Plus, Hell is not a slouch in the damage department in the late game either as the Knights start to pull the Primal Fury. It's below half already, and the only person nearby is inbound. Can't get any kind of shot off, and the Primal Fury belongs to the Knights. That's 2 of the Furies they've been able to secure this game. But Obey again respond by heading towards the Pyromancer. It looks like Cuo has an idea. He's nearby, but they're not going to step in. And instead, Obey just grab the Pyromancer, and that'll be the end of it.
There's a lot of pressure from the Knights over here. Minion wave in mid with no one from Obey to help bounce that off. And Zap's pushing up a minion wave over here and left. They trade out that Pyromancer. They recognize they're going to be able to get at least some good pressure on these 2 towers in the left lanes that cause some trouble for Obey. It's not enough to get them, so the gold doesn't swing in their favor. But now they're having to group up and defend, and this is a dangerous game, especially if Neil decides to blink in.
Looks like they're considering a defense here on the Tier 2 tower. Sino was able to grab one with the Windfire wheels, but inbound's already dead. Neomop falls to the Wolfie snipe, so it is 1 for 1. Support for support, and it looks like the Knights are rethinking this dive, this siege at the end of it all anyway. Zapman is feeling comfortable, though. The furthest member forward for the Knights, they're getting that Hell sustain. The Tier 2 tower has come down, and Wowie is low as well. Maybe the Knights can afford to re-engage, as Zapman certainly feeling comfortable, but they don't get any more kills. They trade their supports, and the Knights able to steal away the Tier 2 tower.
I feel like I could hear Zap's voice in my ears, essentially just going, yeah, just go in, I'll kill the tower, don't worry about it. Right? Just like very relaxed, very Zapman-esque, just, I'm gonna go in, I'll do the thing that hunters do, and whether or not we lose the fight, who cares? We're good at the tower. And again, it's this gold lead now that is starting to mass up. You know, you had said 6 minutes from now. It's only been 4 minutes total since we had that discussion, so maybe it's not the end of the world because it's only advanced about 1,000 gold total in favor of Obey. I think their counter-engage, specifically in objectives, has been big, but I don't know about this. This is interesting for them.
Well, they know the Knights have to reset after that siege, and a lot was expended to make it work. So Obey have the Fire Giant down to half. Inbound is ulting, and it looks like he wants to ult towards the edge. That is repositioning them, but the Fire Giant still being held, and now all of the Knights are here. Now this fight for Obey is bad, and they have to start scattering to the winds. Wowie isolated by Cuo Fred, who gets the first kill. Sino in some trouble too, but they're not going to stop for Sino. Wolfie is the target, and Cuo Fred gets the double, taking care of both of the backline carries for Obey Alliance. And they're still looking. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel grabs Sino, pulls him back to the team, and Paul gets the 3rd kill of that engagement. Obey tried to force that Fire Giant, but I don't know about that call in the end when they stick it, Gormizer. Now, obviously, they've given this Fire Giant over to the Knights.
And there's not much anyone can do about it for Obey. Inbound, maybe healthy enough to try and run in if he was available, but he's over on the left-hand side with the red buff. And Ducky had to back, because if you were paying attention, you saw 4 health bars of the Knights that were collapsing in there on Obey. Where were the other 2? For Obey, they were hanging around, dancing on Zapman, but Zapman was full health, dealing enough damage that neither Ducky nor Inbound were able to find the kill, set up the kill. He went up into his ult. Ducky barely got away with his life. And the fact that Zapman was able to ward off 2 while his team fought a 4v3 very successfully at that, I think showcases exactly the strengths the Knights have. Maybe even more so the reason why Zap was a priority target for Obey last game. Because now that they're not getting rid of that ROM in the initial engagement for themselves, it seems like they're having a much more difficult time locking down the rest of the Knights in the fight.
And now that they're this far behind, I think the Windfire Wheels might be too long of setup, especially if it's going to be on Neil Ma like we saw to the tower, the Tier 2 tower, or if Sino gets separated from the fight like we saw happen in that Fire Giant pit. I mean, I know that getting rid of Zapman early was a good strategy for them before, but now Obey, it feels like it takes too long for that to develop. Wolfie can't stick around and wait in range. He's getting pushed out. They don't have Sino there to help peel the fight anymore, and now the Knights are grouped up and ready for a siege and left.
And right now, with minions available for them, Fire Giant online, Cuo's taking a little weird excursion very far away. I think he's going to push up mid so they can get some pressure, because typically you see a 4-1 split right now. You can't really do much there in mid if you don't have any minion pressure. So I think it's a fallback for the Knights. Oni Fury is going to be coming up, though, in a second. You want minion pressure? That's your key into the game. And right now, I just don't know if Obey can do much about it. Wolfie, as long as he's alive with that snipe, is always available as a threat. But unless he's actually up there and aggressive, he's never going to be in position for it.
Cuo Fred and Scary have stepped up in the middle lane a little bit. Meanwhile, Zapman and the boys are going to stick around to take this Fury. Obviously, then they'll look for the push. They should still have a good amount of time to work with on the siege. Sino is off to right, keeping that solo side minion wave pushed up. That's good work. But I do think the Knights are more concerned with this mid wave and this long lane wave instead. So that's why you see inbound there with a little bit of backup from Ducky to push that wave up. But the Knights are going to take a full reset here. I wonder if they're going to push here at all with this siege. They don't have a ton of time if they take this full reset to work on trying to force down one of these Phoenixes.
Well, they have the minions clashing right now in the middle of the map, and both long and mid. So there's a lot of I think, availability for them to get aggressive. Stopping to do buffs on the way wasn't in my plan when I started talking about this. So I think, and with only a minute left, the Knights are going to be lucky if they could even get a Phoenix, even if they move forward with the Oni Fury waves that are spawning up here. So it does feel very passive from them. I think there's still a tail-end play where they can make something happen. I mean, a minute's a long time in Smite, considering we're only 23 in. They can still find some good kills, and that just might be all they need.
Ducky able to make it up to the somersault cloud, but I mean, where does he go from here? Inbound drops down in the middle of Paul and Neil Ma. That leaves Ducky alone in the back trying to deal with Zapman. Sino barely able to make it out of there with the Windfire Wheels as Neil Ma wants to keep the chase going. Not going to be able to catch up to Sino though, so he makes it out of there. Zapman still chasing Ducky in the back, but Scary D is the one that cuts down inbound in the here and now. They've got 3 members under the left side, Phoenix looking for pressure, but without Zapman, they don't have a ton of damage on it. Meanwhile, Cuo Fred was all on his own, taking care of the Tier 2 tower in solo. Now that means they should have all 3 minion waves lined up here, Gore, to threaten at once.
You remember all those Oni Fury waves? They're starting to push into the base now. Cuvo's got one, Zapman's got one. They're doing a 3-1-1 split, which is not something you get to see often because it theoretically shouldn't work. Somebody's supposed to die here, but there's not enough pressure on Cuvo or Zap.
What? Yeah, so they haven't defended the mid wave or the right wave, and I don't think they're defending this left one, Gore. Good point on the 3-1-1. That split has absolutely worked. The Galaxy Brain plays from the Knights as the snipe from Wolfie connects on the Scary, doesn't quite do the damage they needed, and that's all 3 Phoenixes down at this point. But Obey Alliance do have all their members here, so maybe there can be a defense, but they've lost Wowie already. Inbound falls to, and Wolfie can't survive. That's all the damage gone. Sino and Ducky don't have enough on their own to keep all 5 members of the Pittsburgh Knights out of here, Gore, and that means PK are going to take this one in 2.
All right, roll it back to game number 1. If I see that Obey more often, I'm impressed. That Obey was bringing a different level of game. Game number 2, the Knights just get ahead and they run out of hand. I think we covered it enough early on because, admittedly, the late game, they just had a lead and played with a lead. They didn't necessarily do anything crazy. They got Fire Giants, they won fights, they got Furies, they pushed waves. The most insane thing they did was a 3-1-1 split, and obviously if Obey's not going to defend either of those lanes, then it's going to be more than fine for Cuvo and Zap to translate it. But you roll it back to game 1, a good draft for them, good control, good play, even though, again, for 20-plus minutes of the game it feels like they're losing. The fact that you hold on losing for 20 minutes showcases that you're doing something right and you're moving in the right direction for them. The problem is I think right now, you have to latch onto something. The Knights figured out their thing. They're still moving forward. They look very similar to Phase 1. I'm still excited to keep watching them.
It is starting to seem like Obey have a strong foundation to build on going forward, but this is big for the Knights. With that 1 in the win column before this, they were looking like a bottom-end team. Now they've improved to 2. That should do it here for Gore and I, though. I'll get it back over to the desk, have them take care of things from here.
That's right, the Knights building a little bit of separation as far as the standings go. Unfortunate for Obey, can't keep the momentum for the earlier weekend win, but the Knights get back in the win column here, so massive for them. Aggro with me to break down the game, break down the set. I think another strong performance from Fred. He was 8-1-8 by the end. There were 17 kills on the board for the Knights, so literally one kill on that last engagement was all that Fred missed out on, especially on that Nemesis pick. I think he had himself a great set today.
And I think it's exactly what the doctor ordered, not just for PK, but for Fred, I'm sure, who's a veteran. He's been here, done that, but you don't like to struggle. No one does. And I think that this is a big set for Fred to try and right the ship, so to speak. Scary D and Fred were on much better synchronization this time around. I think that was a struggle for them last week and kind of on all of Phase 2 so far, as those two looked like they were on pretty different pages consistently. This time, I thought that those two played much better together, and the result, pretty simple for PK here today. I know that it wasn't as quick maybe as even set 1 felt, but PK won today pretty convincingly.
Yeah, I think game 2 at least is maybe a no-duh statement, you know, given how the start of Phase 2 has been. Probably one of the best team performances, if not the best, we've seen out of the Knights so far this phase. So something for sure for them to build on. Echoing the other guys' comments on Obey, game 1, absolutely something for them to build on. So I think takeaways for both teams here. Wolfie again, Aggro, had another good game on this Raw. So
He did.
Who was it? Finch or Gore? One of the two of the guys in game was talking about how that affects picks and bans and how it might not actually affect picks and bans. You can't ban out the Raw with so much left available. So something interesting, I think, to follow along with Obey in the future.
100%. Wolfie had a great day today, despite going 0-2, and those are tough as a player when you feel like you played pretty well, but you don't really want to feel that good about yourself because you just lost, right? I mean, it's kind of a weird point where you have to be a veteran, and luckily enough, Wolfie is to understand that sometimes it's a team game, and it's not putting blame on your teammates, but it's just understanding that even though you lost, you can still feel okay about how you performed as an individual. I hope Wolfie does, because I thought he had a great day today on that Raw.
Agreed. Knights have to be feeling good as well. Maybe just as good as being Neil's partner off the tee box. The man crushes it 350 yards. As such, Neil will be here to tell us about his driver game, but maybe more likely how the set went for him.
I don't know if I'll be able to hit you up about the driver game there, Neil, but a good game of Smite at the very least, man. First of all, talk to me about how the team is feeling about the win, because I got to think that was much needed. It has not been an easy start to Phase 2 for you guys.
Yeah, definitely the last couple wins for us were just really uplifting for us. We've been having a few struggles lately for sure. Nothing like too major, like we know what all of our issues are, but it's just obviously frustrating not being able to translate some of these mistakes into fixing them and then translating those into wins. So getting some wins definitely feels like we're righting the ship for sure. So just a matter of time, I think.
And talk to me about that game 1, because I think that personally this set, you all were pretty much in the lead the whole time. I never felt very much in doubt about it, but still the game goes probably a little longer than you all wanted. Do you still chalk that one up as everything going the way that you all wanted, or should you have closed that one out a bit sooner?
Yeah, I definitely feel like we could have closed that one out a little bit sooner. Just a little bit of excitement, I guess, from people. People started playing a little bit loose, definitely not as disciplined as they should have played. And Obey's, like, everyone in this league can punish you if you're playing a little bit loose, you know? So they definitely made some good plays today, even though the result wasn't that brilliant. Like, they still had some nice plays, like Bobby two-man pushing Zap and Ronnie into a raw snipe. They had moments of really good plays, so shouts to them.
Well, Neil, it's always great to get a chance to talk to you, and always great to get to watch you play as well. Thanks for taking some time, man. I'll get it back to Dolson so they can close things out.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. Thanks, Finch. Again, that does it for this week here in the SPL. A lot of fun to watch through these games, shifting as far as the standings go. Let's take a look back at what we saw, though, this week. Obey start off week 4 of Phase 2 with a win over United. And then Aggro, that block of Saturday games, something to watch. The top 4 teams in action, and then kind of reversed here on Sunday, the bottom 4 teams, but lots of contested games nonetheless.
It was a great week, as It feels like it always is these days in the SPL, and next week doesn't get any easier. I think it's going to be a lot of fun because the 2 undefeated teams coming into this week were Radiance and Ghost. You know who starts off our SPL week next week, Dave? I'll give you one guess.
I have an inkling Ghost is one of the 2 teams.
And who's the second one? Because 2 teams.
Radiance would be my guess for the other team in that game.
Wow, Dave, what can't you do, man?
Let's go! Yeah!
They're the opening game on Friday, and that is going to be a ton of fun, man. I can't wait. No more one team, both teams undefeated, one team's got to lose, the easy storylines. Now it's they're both angry and out for revenge after taking their first loss, so it should be a lot of fun.
Sanguine Obey will round out the day there. Do you have early predictions on that one? We haven't submitted our votes yet as casters for Ghost Radiance. Yeah, we'll have a week to really detail our thoughts, get down to the nitty-gritty, decide who we think's gonna win. But right now, production tells you to vote for our waiting room recap. Who are you chalking up on that one?
I'm going Ghost. They beat them at the playoffs, right? I mean, it's the safer bet. I think it's what history has done, at least recently.
We'll have to think on it and maybe revise depending on how this week treats us. But a lot of people will probably be voting that way regardless. Ghost Radiance starts off our next week in the SPL. That's it, though, for week number 4. On behalf of myself, Aggro, all the other casters, everyone back in production, thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you on Friday.
Peach it.